without further ado, I want to introduce a friend, colleague, and one of the smartest and most creative people I know to moderate this session. Please welcome from Taffy, Daz 3D, Preston Wu. Yeah!
Das?
Preston Wu. There we go.
Good here?
Sure. And I'll go on this end.
Hello.
So we flipping?
Wait.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hi.
So I'm super excited to moderate this panel. It's about bringing big brands and small brands into the Web3 space. I think we have an illustrious group here. I know everybody, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And why don't we start with Shannon from Nifty's? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey into Web3?
Sure. All right, just jumping right in there.
Just jump right into it. Yeah.
Hi, you guys. My name's Shannon Kelly. I am the head of partnerships at an NFT marketplace called Nifty's. We work with Daz. We work with a bunch of other brands. I've been in media my whole life. I've actually never worked at a brand, but I've worked with brands my entire career. I was at Vice Media for 10 years, and a variety of roles there, including biz dev. I launched our feminist channel broadly. I was our head of experiential. I left there to join another startup called Network, which is shoppable commerce, or shoppable video content, I should say. It was Jimmy Iovine's first project post Beats by Dre. And then I got pulled over to Network, to Nifty's, God, I'm just not awake right now, from our CEO, Jeff, who came from the NBA. And Jeff actually led the blockchain group that started Top Shot. So he was our co-founder of Nifty's, brought me over, and now I'm in Web3 with these guys. So.
Amazing.
Nice.
Great background. And Victoria from Coinbase, if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Great to see everyone. I'm Victoria Hine. I'm on the business development team at Coinbase, and specifically, I lead Coinbase NFT partnerships. My journey into Web3, wow, it's a very rowdy crowd over there.
They're very excited about Victoria.
Very excited. My journey into Web3 was very interesting. I started in 2017 with just buying and holding crypto. I always found cryptocurrency, blockchain technology to be super interesting, but I never really thought I could have a job in it until Coinbase went public, and I was like, wow, business development, Coinbase, Web3, I could do this. And so that's kind of how I started and how I got here.
Thanks, Victoria. And William from SneakerCon.
Hi, everyone. William DeBoard, Managing Director and Founding Member at SneakerCon. Spent the last 13 years traveling the globe, bringing sneaker culture and resale market of sneakers to different markets around the world and all over the US. In 2018, we launched a marketplace and launched Authenticity, and did that for eBay in 2020. We launched the eBay Authenticity Guarantee Program, which they are now running. And yeah, we continue doing events. We did one in Salt Lake City for the first time around 3 weeks ago. Biggest event we've ever done, first time in any city. So kudos to Salt Lake City for having a big event. And you know, we have a live physical IRL community, and we're exploring many ways of taking that into Web3, into the metaverse. You know, not just with the authentication platform, also with our events and our brand. So keep it short for now.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And Matt, I think I'm acquainted with Matt, but from Matt, for the president of Taffy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I must talk to Preston like 10 hours a day. I'm
Poor guy.
Taffy and Daz as well. I'm Matt Wilburn. I'm the president. Yeah, Preston and I talk all the time. We're partners with Nifty's and Coinbase, and so it's fun to have them here. We know the work they're doing is awesome. Have spent a short amount of time with Will, but have known his work for a long time, and I'm super stoked to hear your perspective on this topic today. I'll date myself. I was part of the moving to Web 2, moving brands into Web 2. I worked at Yahoo in the ad group back in this 2006, 7, 8 kind of time frame when brands weren't using the internet to advertise. And it was crazy with all of the things you could do on the internet to reach people and engage and create new experiences. they were still spending huge amounts of their budget in print and in all of these like less effective ways. And so my job back then feels a lot like what the job is right now, which is help brands navigate this space, new tech, new opportunities, ways to create experiences, ways to reach customers and make connections that you just can't do in real life. So that's kind of my interest and why we have so much fun doing what we do every day at Daz and Taffy.
Nothing but fun. So the topic for this panel is bringing brands into Web3. And I think the first person I'll start with, William. Why are brands looking at getting into Web3?
Well, I mean, it's like he just explained with Web 2, right? When the web in general, when the HTTP released in the 89 and 90, it took about 9-10 years for the big brands like Google, Amazon, eBay, right? All these huge brands to actually launch and to take the technology and create something practical that was able to be utilized on a wide scale. So that's where we are now. It might not take 10 years. It might be 3-4 years when Web3 is fully launched and people are actually creating practical applications for it. So we're at the forefront. I mean, if you're here listening to this today, you can start something, create an application for Web3 that applies to current businesses. And I mean, the sky's the limit there. So I think that brands really need to think that way because we saw it already happen with the internet. A lot of people were late to the party. Some people were early to the party. So it's about picking your spot, right? Making sure you develop something that has a foundation in Web3 and can scale with Web3.
No, that's amazing. Shannon, would you like to add anything to that? I will also say, like, there's a lot of news going on today about Starbucks moving into Web3, Coca-Cola. Shannon at Nifty's brought Matrix and some of those, Looney Tunes and great properties into the NFT and Web3 space as well. Do you have anything to add to that? Like, why are the brands you're working with interested in Web3?
Well, yeah, it's so interesting because they obviously see it as a marketing opportunity, but it's so much more than that. It's about ownership of fandom, really. And brands are starting to get to that, but to Will's point, that's slow. And they don't get it, and they want to wait and see what happens first, and then you're going to be left behind. And now the Starbucks is a good example because I've had brands reach out and being like, okay, Starbucks is in it, we got to go. But you're already a little bit behind to the next iteration of what's going to happen in Web3. So I would also say the same thing, just get in there and start growing. But it's a really good tool for brands to test out right now, to see how they can engage their fans, and to really give fans ownership of their fandom.
Oh, interesting. No, that's a good answer. And then Coinbase for Victoria. Coinbase is the #1 crypto retail app with over 100 million users. They moved into the NFT space just earlier this year, and already doing a lot of big Method Man or Bill Murray drops. Can you tell me a little bit about why those celebrities or those brands are interested in moving into NFTs and Web3?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the interesting thing and really what differentiates Coinbase from some of the other marketplaces and some of the other brands is our focus on safety and our focus on ease of use. Web3 is super complicated, the NFT space is complicated, and so our goal is really to abstract away the complexities of Web3 in order to onboard the next million users. And so when it comes to celebrities or big brands with traditional audiences that may not be as familiar with Web3 and owning a wallet or buying an NFT in the space, we want to make it as easy as possible to make that on-ramp. And so the reason that we work with a lot of these brands or they come to Coinbase first is really because we make it so easy for their individual users or clients or fans to participate in Web3 using the best tools and the easiest tools.
Great, thanks for that. Maybe I'll actually ask Matt. I know we started off hot about Web3, but what is Web3? I know if you listen to the last panel, you'll know exactly what it is. But Matt, do you want to help just define what it is, and then I'll ask you some more tough questions about your great-looking colleagues like me.
Yeah, that was a plant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we think of Web3 as kind of the next iteration. There's so many definitions out there, and it means something different to so many people. We look at it as a new platform, a new business model, a new cultural moment where all the tech that has come from Web 1, Web 2 eras has evolved in ways that there's like flaws in the ointment or flies in the ointment. There's things about it that we're uncomfortable with. And I think that's where cryptocurrency has really like kind of had its genesis is in trying to right some of the wrongs of some of the tech. And maybe it's too lofty and ideal to say like Web3 is going to fix everything, it's utopian. But I'm really drawn to people who think that way and who want to make the world a little better and like decentralization and like the idea of communities having more control and having more say and more convenience for themselves. And I think the NFT space in particular, in the last year and a half has proven a really successful model of putting that kind of control and convenience and bringing these communities of creators together. The Artifact team that's joining us here has been amazing pioneers on the front end of that and has really shown the way for a lot of other brands. And I'm super drawn to the idea that we can make tech serve us in better ways than it has in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. Why don't I just shift the gears a little bit and I'll ask the question, like I'll start with you, Victoria. What is the most exciting thing about Web3 for you, whether it's a project coming up or just the industry or like utility? Like, tell me about that.
Wow, Preston.
And a big question.
Big question. So when I first started during the summer of the NFT summer, where everybody was hyphy, anything that was being released would be sold out in a matter of seconds, if not minutes. Folks weren't really looking at the roadmap or the utility of the project teams. And when we think about, projects like Pixelmons that raised 70 million but were a complete failure, and but then became a meme of itself, it was such an interesting time. And when you fast forward to today and you have announcements of Warner partnering with OpenSea, or you have Starbucks diving into the Web3 space, it really excites Coinbase and myself as well, because it shows that these legacy brands are finally understanding the value that Web3 community building and really deepening a relationship with their audience and their existing customer base is for them. And so this first mover advantage that some of these big legacy brands are now going to have, because they're going to effectively be shaping the industry as they step into it, is something that personally excites me. We think about Web 2 and we think about the likes of an Uber or a Lyft disrupting an industry, or even think about the bed-in-a-box industry disrupting mattresses. And the reason that all of this happened was legacy brands chose to ignore new technology. They chose to overlook it, and they chose not to necessarily invest or participate in it. And we're seeing the complete opposite here. We're seeing that they're worried that if they are not first, they're going to be last, and they're going to open up an opportunity for a new type of company to step in, an incumbent to take away market share. And so what I'm most excited about, Preston, to bring my question back around, is really the fact that we're finally at a place where mainstream brands with mainstream audiences are excited about Web3, and they're dedicating their time, efforts, and money into doing it the right way and stepping into this space.
Great. So, Victoria, you talked about, it's ready for the mainstream, and there's brands that want to be first movers. William, why don't you tell me about why some companies like yourselves are taking a more measured approach to make sure they get it right, or what is it that you're looking at to get right? I mean, you're an OG in the authentication space, which is what blockchain and Web3 helps enable. I don't want to ask the question, what are you waiting for? But it's more like, what are you preparing? What kind of groundwork are you laying right now to enter in the way that you want to?
Yeah, so sorry, guys. So for SneakerCon, we're such a community-based business. Like, as the community and the culture of sneakers grows, our events grow, more attendees come. But even
the mics are off.
Yeah, I'm off.
I think all of them are off.
There we go.
There we go. So even on our social media, you see, we don't overly advertise anything. It's all very organic and very for our community. So when all this boom of NFTs was happening last year, we were so tempted, right, to like drop an art collection, especially being such an art-based brand, and raise a ton of capital dropping a collection. But then we're beholden to that community that buys the NFT, right? We have to show some utility, build some value for them, engage them more on Discord groups, right? And things like that. We weren't prepared for that. Sure, we could have generated a collection of 10,000 NFTs, but it's the aftermath. It's your accountability to that community. So we've been super hesitant to launch something in Web3 because we want to lay down the foundation to be able to service that community, because it will scale. Our current community will scale. It will blow up with the NFT just industry. But for us, like, it's so important for us to maintain an organic approach to how we engage with our community. So we didn't want to rush into it. We didn't just want to drop something just to drop it, which I've seen a lot of brands do, and now it's like gone over people's heads, and you don't even know that certain brands did an NFT collection last year. So for us, like, we understand it. We see the value. We're in the collectibles industry. Of course, we understand how NFT value and can be traded, and also the verifiable aspect of it on blockchain and all of that. And then the endless possibilities with the metaverse and that implication of wearables, like that. So we understand it all. We're just really taking an approach as to how we get into the industry.
Make sure you deliver.
Make sure you deliver to your community.
No, that's a great point, William. And I actually know a company that can help with that if you're looking. It's a great company called Taffy. But on that note, I mean, William talks about utility, about making sure you're delivering the right thing for the community. Shannon, you guys have had some very successful NFT drops and engaging the community with gamification. If you could talk a little bit about that, on how you approach the utility or engaging the community of your Web3 buyers or users.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's always been our first and foremost mission, is to create community. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to about Web3 is for the speculation era to kind of be behind us and that quick flip. Because really, for me, it's about community and ownership and what Will is talking about, and really being there for the brand or for your community, and knowing that, I'm not just going to pay $1 million for an MG and then pay $1 million to create NFTs and then pay for marketing and then just sell it and then do nothing with it. Like, that, to me, is just not what this technology is there for, and that era, I think, is going away, and that's what I'm really excited about, to create community. So everything we do has engagement, has ongoing activities, and it's a feedback loop, so that communities can really own it and engage and almost compete with each other, light gamification. And it's really exciting, and that's where the space is going. And not to talk up another project that's not one of ours, but some friends just released a project called Brick, and they're releasing that to open a venue. And then this venue will be a community center, and the kids who own parts of that will be able to go for free or be able to take master classes with artists. And that's where I think this is going and why it's really exciting. But to Will's point, that's forever. So you do have to be prepared for that, or at the very least hand it off to the community so that they can run it. But that's what our goal is.
No, that's great. Maybe I'll flip it a little bit and I'll ask Matt, what are some of the common mistakes you think that brands make when they approach going into Web3? Or if you want to name names, you can, but you're recorded, so you might not want to.
Let's do it.
But go ahead.
I got a laundry list of grievances
Exactly.
to air. Shannon kind of touched on one of the big things that I think was a negative for the space that a lot of brands did. So if you want to say that's a mistake, I'd put it in that category, and that's a very transactional, short-term mindset about what NFTs are and what the space is about. The brands that are doing it best, I think, are the ones who have a real authentic commitment to just learning and coming in and not getting over their skis, not getting to not making the focus just about them. It's about meeting. This space gives you an opportunity, and the technology of blockchain and NFTs gives brands an opportunity to have an authentic different relationship with customers. Again, Artifact has done a great job of making its whole community creators and giving them a platform to meet each other and to experiment and be part of the brand, not just own a brand or buy a brand, but be part of the brand. Yuga Labs has done a great job with Bored Ape Yacht Club in the same way to give real ownership, real investment back to the community that it serves. We worked with Coca-Cola and last year helped launch their first NFT in the space, and they were so humble. It's this brand that has sold collectible items and has sold goods in 3 different centuries in this country. They've been like at the top of brand love lists for decades, and there was no flex, there was no there was no overconfidence. They were humble and they wanted to learn and they wanted to serve the community in a way that would be received well. And I think that is so smart to enter in a way, to your point, in a way that's expected by your community because you have an accountability, and to operate that way and to have a real commitment that isn't just like a quick flip, isn't about being transactional.
Oh, that's a great answer. Victoria, do you want to add to what Matt said, or any comment on his, like any mistakes or things that brands think about maybe incorrectly as they consider Web3?
No, I think Matt touched on it so well. The only thing to add to it is, I think when you think about a brand and you think about a legacy brand, the challenge that they're met with is they don't have a Web3 department that has an engineer and a product person and a marketer that understands the space, that has been in the space long enough to necessarily have an opinion on how to combine a brand ethos and what the brand is about alongside what Web3 is. The space is so new. Bitcoin, just in 2009, you don't have these individuals that are experts in the space to come in and necessarily advise you in the right way that's going to be an exact brand fit. And so oftentimes it's the marketing department that takes over for the brand and creates an NFT collection. And the way a marketing department works is they push something out and then they move on to the next thing. They don't necessarily continue efforts on the one big marketing push that they've just conducted. And so that's why sometimes we see with these big brands and legacy brands doing a release, it's a one and done. They've collected the money, they've done their thing, and they've kind of left the space. And that's really the wrong way to think about it, because it doesn't set brands up for success. It doesn't set them up for the long term and longevity of the space in order for them to really craft the way that it develops. You have to not only continue iterating and supporting this existing community that you've built with your members and your audience, and you have to have a roadmap and you have to execute on that roadmap, but you also have to tie in what the future brings. You can't just settle on the fact that you've done this one collection and you have 5,000 holders and that's just it. You need to continuously uphold that existing collection while also iterating on what the next thing is and how you're going to be redefining the space in your own way that's true to you and your ethos. So I think that the biggest mistake, again, is just it being a marketing endeavor. One push and you're done and you're out of the space, and that just doesn't go a long way for the brand.
Oh,
I wanted to add to that because
Yeah,
it's so
definitely.
true. It's so true. It's either, I think what's most interesting to watch brands enter the space is like, is it marketing or is it consumer products? And trying to see whose department it sits with is very fascinating. Obviously, marketing will have the budget and the eyeballs on them to make a big push on something, but then, as Victoria said, they're gone. And then consumer products is with it, and it's an ongoing thing, but they're also thinking about what's the 2024 piece. So I'm going to be excited when brands have Web3 departments and experts in that. For now, we're the experts and happy to help them enter the space, but it is a different mindset, and I'll be ready for when we all start thinking like that. It's not necessarily consumer product or marketing or even an NFT. It's fandom, it's ticketing, it's loyalty, it's membership. It's all of those things in one, and it's new.
No, that's very interesting. So, Shannon, you're talking about marketing owns it, or Victoria's talking about marketing or the consumer products group. I'll actually just ask William. I mean, when you think about moving into Web3, what's your goal? You already have a highly engaged community. You already do IRL authentication. Why are you interested in it? Fundamentally, what's the goal of moving into Web3 from your perspective?
All for the same reason that we hit new markets like Salt Lake City with our events, or
Nice.
Go International. It's really to bring a certain community. We started in New York in 2009, And it was the perfect place to start because the New York mentality is kind of that hustle and bustle, grind. So people understood right away. Bring my sneakers, and I can trade and buy, sell, and trade with each other. We went to certain places like Miami or LA in 2011, and no one brought shoes to trade. They weren't about like the hustle mentality. Like they're like, yeah, I have shoes at home, they're in my closet, but I'm gonna go to SneakerCon, maybe buy a couple pairs, and then I'm out. There wasn't like that whole trading kind of culture. So the more we went to the same cities over and over again, the more we saw the trading pit liven up, the more we saw more vendors becoming vendors and sellers in those areas. So that's the same reason. We want to take our community and expand it and scale it to another level. Social media did that for us in a big way. We've had over 200,000 attendees in 13 years at all our events, but we have 3.5 million followers on our Instagram account. The reach is just much broader. So we already see that the metaverses will be a point of engagement. The gaming platforms will be points of engagement, and we want to be there. We want to be there to continue spreading this culture, to continue giving kids a platform to become entrepreneurs, start their own businesses and careers that aren't necessarily there in the educational path, right? To go to college and be an accountant or be a computer scientist or be an engineer of some sort. The kids at SneakerCon, they're starting brands, they're becoming influencers, they're e-gamers. This is a whole new era of career paths, and we want to keep creating that platform and expanding it. And we believe that Web3 is that next level. After social media, Web3 will expand even more and give people in other more rural places, more remote places, easier access to the information and easier access to brands like ours.
Interesting. I'll have actually asked Matt to follow up on that. So do you agree with what William said about expanding reach? Is it a new demographic? Is it a new level of engagement? How does it do it?
Not at all.
Nothing, just the opposite.
Just mixing it up.
Yeah.
No, it is, and it's an equalizer, right? I mean, that's the whole, when we talk about Web3, it's bringing people into conversations in a more meaningful way. Like if you've been disconnected, if you're not part of a community, this is a way for people to have that. I absolutely think that's the case, and it's been the experience for me being able to go to community-driven events in this space where you just see people who would never come together. There would be nothing that would be like the connective tissue that would cause you to come together, and yet it brings awesome people together around shared interests, shared values. And I think that that is the ethos of Web3, about opening up community and making that more accessible to people. So yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm excited to see, because Shannon brought up it'd be nice to have a Web3 department.
Yep.
Back when I was doing this whole thing with Yahoo, we were stoked when there was a digital department, but then I was so much more stoked to get past that to where the brand teams and all the teams just had this mentality that it's just another way to connect with consumers, that it wasn't separate anymore, that it had permeated the rest of the organization. You get a muscle memory to think about customers differently than someone you're we have to have a digital department. Right. Now, 10 years from now, we'll be on panels saying, man, that was awesome to get to a Web3 specialist or team, but I'm glad we're past it and that everybody just thinks this way now. So we'll see.
I feel like it was you had to have print ads, then you had to have digital ads, then people learned about social, then we learned about branded content, then experiential, and then it became 360 campaigns. And now it's okay, shit, we got to add Web3 into that. But it's no, Web3 becomes all of that and is the next thing that we're focusing on for community.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, one way to think about it is everything that touches digital content streaming, it actually can turn into a digital asset on that ownership basis. So it's another mechanic of providing ownership to people and agency. We're running low on time. I actually wanted to open it up for questions from the audience. And if I was an audience member, I'd be how do I make money from this or something like that. But I'll ask some questions. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I'm a big NFT holder, but I've, like many of us, we've bought into different projects that sort of are just kind of like pump and dumps. I'm curious to hear if you wouldn't mind sharing a few projects that you feel are looking long term, that are going to stand the test of time as far as holding their value and are true game changers in the NFT space. If you wouldn't mind sharing maybe one or two, that'd be awesome.
Does someone want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the obvious ones like Yuga Labs, right, CryptoPunks, Bored Ape Yacht Club, CloneX, the guys who are here, some smaller projects that I've been in that I've been following for like the past year. Creeps, I don't know if you know Creeps. They just rebranded as Overlord. They tapped in with a branding agency in London called 36, I forget, but pretty much they're taking their brand global. They're doing a fashion brand. They're doing metaverse. They're doing e-gaming. They were the first to create a play-to-earn type game, and they did it right off the bat. And it's been super engaging. They even threw in like a way to create your own character. So generate your own properties into a new character by opening card packs, like old trading cards. And they've been able to tap in their token that they created. And now, it's held, even though the market dropped. The floor is still about 1 ETH, and there's different, properties that are worth more. So I've been following that project. I'm still a holder, and I like where they're going. They followed the roadmap, and they've unleashed new things that weren't in the roadmap. So that's just one. There's another one called the F8 Club. They launched a racing game for the metaverse, and they actually in 2 months developed a beta version that they let all the holders test out. And it's a really cool functioning game. And then they're doing a land mint. They followed through with the roadmap, and then what they've done now is create kind of like their Yuga Labs or their Artifact like parent company, and they dropped an NFT collection called Soul. So it's going to be Soul Labs, and then beneath them they have a bunch of projects that they're kind of launching to create that ecosystem and give utility to their holders. So those are just two that I've also bought into a bunch of pump and dumps. You got to think about it like last year was like, imagine you had access to be Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, and you were just throwing your chips at every person that made a presentation. It was that easy to invest into these projects. But what you have to realize is, if you see 200 companies launch, 70% of them will fail, 80% of them will fail. It's the same thing with NFT projects. You have a lot of people that understood the technology and had an easy way to develop and generate a collection. I YouTubed how to generate my own collection, and I can do it out of my basement. So you have to understand that just because you have a nice website with a nice roadmap and you generate a cool-looking collection, it doesn't mean that you have the abilities or the business savviness to launch what we call NFT projects, but they're actually real businesses and real, enterprises. And like I said earlier, once you launch, there's no turning back. So a lot of these people launched art collections, but they didn't realize that what they were creating was a community that would follow that art collection and those NFTs, and they failed to deliver for those communities, and then you see the price tank. But yeah, I would say just keep your head up in this market. Still try to really dig in and find those projects. Like back in the early 2000s when we would go on Yahoo, and try to evaluate, look at, balance sheets and evaluate stocks to try to see who was worth investing into with the tech boom. There were so many tech companies that failed, right, in the original web. Same thing for Web3. That's where we are. We're in the wild, wild west, and it's a scary time, but you got to do your own research, Dior, as they say on the Discord groups.
Dior.
DYOR, yeah.
Love
you got to do your own research. Don't just go with like your neighbor telling you that there's some new NFT project worth investing into. That's like stocks back in the days, right? So you don't want to fall into, you don't want to chase. Yep. The same thing with sneakers. If your janitor's telling you about a sneaker drop, it's probably too late. You know what I mean? You got to be in at the retail level. You got to be in at the sneakerhead level. If I or the guys from Artifact tell you, hey, there's this shoe dropping, you probably want to go and try to get it. But if you're figuring it out from your Uber driver, it's probably too late to get in. So it's the same thing, same concepts, same lessons we learned in, web and stocks 20 years ago. Still apply those lessons to this new industry because it's a scary thing when it's just launching.
Any other, someone else have a question?
Kinda took
Thanks for
that.
That's great.
Great.
Hi, thanks so much for all the information so far. It's been really great. I'm just curious, I know that fraud and sustainability have been really big issues in the Web3 development and just this whole world. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on if those problems are being solved enough to a point where these big projects that people are launching are really going to be sustainable and last in the long run, like taking over the efforts of like social media and all these other marketing things. Can they really be sustainable in Web3 due to these other issues?
Yeah, do you want Victoria or Shannon?
Go ahead.
You can probably talk about security.
Yeah.
But sustainability, I think, is already being addressed and has been with not just the merge, but other layer twos like Palm, which we work with, and Polygon, and there's so many of them. And I think I definitely think it's been really quickly addressed, like so quickly, from the anger and the negativity about it was like very easily flipped. But there's still always going to be those people that's their immediate knee-jerk reaction. But even if you look at today after the merge, I mean, opening up and buying something is about the equivalent of, looking at Instagram on your phone. So that has definitely, I think, been, continuously worked on and improved upon. Now, whether that can get out to general population and the masses, I will come to, but it's going to be a little bit slower. So, and security, I think as well, there's definitely fraud and theft, but that, we're working on our own safety measures and protections for our users, and it's really important to Coinbase as well, whose wallet we actually use. So,
No, I think you bring up a good question, and I think the thing to keep in mind is we're very, very early,
Yeah.
and that's the reason there aren't enough safeguards in place to prevent somebody who's super new to the space, who's buying their very first NFT ever, to know what good wallet hygiene means, to know that they shouldn't store their valuable NFTs on a hot wallet and potentially transfer to a cold storage. I think there's a lot that we can do for education, and Coinbase does a lot of great videos. You can actually earn tokens by watching some of our videos, and that way you watch a short 30-second video about how something works, and you earn some tokens in ERC20 or whatnot. But outside of good wallet hygiene, I think it's the responsibility of the marketplaces, the companies themselves, to build out, using Web3 technologies that are true to Web3, build out ways to prevent users from not getting scammed and from not falling prey to individuals that are just trying to take money and drain wallets and whatnot. Interestingly enough, actually, there was a very sad situation with Bill Murray's drop where he did a charity auction and he raised $178,000, and within 12 hours his wallet was unfortunately drained. And so it was a very scary, terrible situation. His incredible team, Project Venkman, actually worked day and night on restoring the funds, and they got all of it back. But the moral of the story is you could be somebody that has an entire team dedicated to security and holding your funds, and even at that place, they still make mistakes. Mistakes can easily be made within the Web3 space, and so it's really the responsibility of companies to create easy-to-use tools with safeguard and with rails in place, and then also to adhere to really good wallet hygiene.
Excellent. So we have time for, do you want to add to?
Could I ask a quick question of the audience? I'm curious because I hear the vocabulary we're all using about NFTs and hot wallets and cold storage, and like a year and a half ago, this was like mind-numbing to me, and I'm like in the space. I wonder how much that, like the vocabulary we all use and talk about NFT communities and stuff is like common knowledge. How many people, like, raise a hands, have like a crypto wallet? If you guys don't mind, like, send me your seed phrase.
Okay.
So we're at a tech conference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's actually a very good percentage, right?
So in May, in February this year, we were here in Salt Lake, and I asked that question, and it was like maybe 10, 20%. So that was a pretty good percentage. How about like hands up if you own an NFT, if you've ever purchased an NFT at any point? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just super curious, like the adoption rate just by the very scientific method of raise of hands. That yeah, cool. Thanks.
And if people have questions, is there a way they can get that answered? I mean, I don't. look online. It's like, the way we got educated is probably just like watching YouTube like early on and
I think
looking
the
at
best
Coinbase.
way to get educated is buy an NFT.
Start doing
Fine,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
learn the
Get started.
process
Yeah.
of you buy something, you learn it, you're like, well, what do I do with this thing? Is this stupid? Is this cool? And you start learning and you start making mistakes and you hope you make like kind of low consequence mistakes, but you start learning from the perspective of like as a holder, and that I think that's helped us a lot with the brands we work with. Like I can come at the brand expectation from an owner's view. Like what would I want? What would be valuable? The word utility gets tossed around. Like, well, what's the utility? All that means is value. What value do you offer somebody who invests in you and believes in you? And so like I have those questions as a holder more than I do as on the other side of the.
You got to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
You have to have skin in the game to really tap in. It's like, when I didn't grow up on football, I never really used to watch it. But you better believe when I was able to gamble on football and put money down on a game, I learned all the rules.
Fantasy.
I learned all the plays. I learned all the players. So it's the same thing. You have to just go in on something, make it a low entry, mint an NFT. You hear about a project, just go in and just follow the community on Discord, and see how it develops. And that's how you're going to learn the quickest, is by having some skin in the game.
All right, we have a little less than 2 minutes. So I think I'm going to ask each of the panelists if they have like 20 seconds to say one thing they want to impart the audience with, dropping some knowledge. So Matt, I'll start with you.
I just said mine, so I'll concede the time.
I'll just say, kind of to piggyback off her last question, if you can think about, because we didn't get too many questions, you guys didn't get to ask too many questions. If you can think about something that you would have asked that makes it scary, or why you haven't entered or bought an NFT or have a wallet or bought some crypto, then that's probably an application waiting to happen for you to develop that business, develop that layer of security, develop that service for holders of NFTs, people with wallets. So this is the internet, in 1998, 99. We're just waiting for someone to develop the Facebook, someone to develop, all these new applications. So if you have a question about it, that's probably a point of entry for you. You just don't know it yet.
Thanks. Well, Victoria?
I mean, I really liked Matt's.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing is, oftentimes when you look at NFT projects, you look at some of the art and you might think, why would I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this? I just don't get it. And so the one recommendation that I always have is find something that does speak to you. There are so many incredible artists in this space that are putting out one-of-one artwork. There are so many project teams that are experimenting with experiences and utility, to Matt's point. And so find something that speaks to you, that really resonates with you, and buy that. Don't buy what your Uber driver is telling you to buy or what your best friend's telling you to buy. Really find something that speaks to you and buy it. And chances are it spoke to you, it's going to have much more meaning and you're going to grow much more attached to it rather than something that someone just told you to buy and maybe potentially make money on.
Thanks, Victoria. Shannon?
Okay, everything that these guys said, but also, I learn about it and get excited. I meet so many people who are like, ugh, NFTs, I'm never gonna bother figuring that out, but it's not going anywhere. This is the internet. This is what the future is. So I would say learn as much as you can and immerse yourselves in it and have fun.
Great. Thank you very much for the panelists. If you get a round of applause for them. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Go.